They tossed a wrench at Emma's feet in front of 200 engineers and told her to fix a $2 million jet engine, or leave in disgrace. No degree, no title, just a quiet woman in jeans, standing in the heart of Silicon Valley's most arrogant aerospace company. They thought they knew who she was. They were wrong. What she did next, you'll never forget it. This story of injustice and eventual redemption deserves to be shared. So hit that like button. And subscribe to follow more true stories of courage in the face of discrimination. Now, let's rewind and see how this explosive moment began. The main auditorium at Stratus Aerotech in Silicon Valley buzzed with a strange excitement, like everyone had shown up not to witness a test, but a takedown. In the center of it all stood Emma Carter, 35 years old, wearing faded jeans, a plain white shirt, and a quiet expression that didn't match the chaos swirling around her. Just behind her, towering on the stage, sat a gleaming 900 rupees jet engine, a $2 million piece of cutting-edge aerospace hardware that had baffled the company's engineering team for 3 straight days. And Emma? She wasn't an engineer on paper. No degree, no official background in aerospace, no fancy title, just a woman who fixed cars in a San Jose neighborhood garage, and apparently had the audacity to apply for a junior technician position at one of the most elite aerospace companies in the country. Richard Langston, Stratus's CEO, stood at the mic, pacing like he was warming up a TED Talk, except his tone dripped with condescension. "This woman," he said, gesturing toward Emma like she was part of an exhibit, "believes she can join our engineering division without a degree. No credentials, just confidence." He turned toward her and tossed a wrench onto the stage. It hit the floor with a loud metallic crack that echoed through the hall. "You have 30 minutes to fix what my Ivy League engineers could not," he said coldly. "If you fail, you walk, forever." The crowd laughed, engineers, executives, even a few reporters smirking as they raised their phones to record. Emma didn't move, not at first. She looked at the wrench, then at the engine, then at the rows of faces waiting for her to fail. And then she bent down and picked it up. Her hand trembled slightly, her jaw was tight, but behind her brown eyes was something most of them couldn't read: resolve. They didn't know who she was, what she'd built, or what had been taken from her. But they were about to find out. Stay with me, because what Emma does next will change everything. Emma crouched beside the 900 rupees engine, eyes scanning its frame like she was reading an old, familiar book. The laughter hadn't stopped, not yet. People still expected a joke, a moment of embarrassment, another woman, in over her head. But as her hands moved across the housing, something in the room shifted. She wasn't fumbling, she wasn't guessing, she was listening for sounds no one else had heard in 3 days. Because Emma wasn't just a woman with a wrench. She was something far more dangerous to men like Richard Langston. She was qualified without permission. 5 years ago, Emma Carter wasn't fixing carburetors in a San Jose garage. She was Dr. Emma Carter, the youngest propulsion systems lead at the Johnson Deep Space Research Lab in Houston. The same lab that had developed NASA's latest generation of fuel-efficient spacecraft. She'd stood on a stage much like this one, applauded for designing a revolutionary engine that reduced fuel mass by nearly 40%. Headlines called her the mind behind Mars. Awards, interviews, a career on fire. And then, it all disappeared. One night, one betrayal, was all it took. Her fiancé, also her research partner, sold their classified engine design to a private defense contractor for millions, and framed her as the thief. In a single week, she lost her job, her reputation, and the future she had built. No trial, no hearing, just a quiet dismissal and the weight of public silence. Since then, Emma disappeared. No lawsuits, no interviews, no explanations. She buried the degrees, shut off the ambition, chose peace over proving herself. Until now, until she recognized her own stolen design being paraded on stage as the 900 rupees. And standing there in jeans and a thrift store shirt, she made a choice, not to scream, not to expose, but to fix it, properly, precisely, silently, because that's what real engineers do. And as she worked, as her fingers danced across the faulty calibration, even the laughter began to fade. Because people were starting to realize, this wasn't some fluke, This was expertise. This was someone who had built engines meant for the stars, now fixing one built on lies. If you're still with me right now, and you're feeling what I'm feeling, comment the number 1 below. Let me know you're still listening. Because Emma's not finished yet. She's just getting started. And what comes next, no one in that room saw coming. After that night in Houston, Emma didn't fight. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't call a lawyer. She packed what little she had, including a box of notebooks no one believed she wrote, and vanished. The world forgot about her. And maybe that was the point. For the past 5 years, Emma Carter lived quietly in a small apartment above a laundromat in East San Jose. The kind of place where the windows rattle when buses pass, and the neighbors only know you as that quiet woman upstairs. She worked part-time at the public library, helping kids with math homework and reshelving books. She wore the same white shirts every week, the same sneakers, no jewelry, no makeup, nothing that hinted at who she once was. The truth? She was hiding in plain sight. And who could blame her? When your life's work is stolen, when your name is dragged through silent corridors and blacklisted behind closed doors, sometimes the easiest thing to do is stop being anyone at all. But here's the thing, greatness doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits in the quiet. It waits while you heal, while you breathe, while you ask yourself if it's even worth returning. And for Emma, it waited every single morning at 5 a.m. when she brewed black coffee in a chipped mug and stared out the window at the skyline, engines roaring in the distance. Dreams she once designed now flying without her name. It was Cody, the boy from downstairs, who first brought her back to herself. He was 11, obsessed with airplanes, and used to sneak into the library to ask her questions about how rockets worked. She never said much, just pointed at the right books. But one day, he caught her scribbling equations on a napkin during her lunch break. "Are you an engineer?" he asked. She looked down at the numbers. Half-forgotten formulas. Ghosts from another life. "I used to be," she said. Cody grinned like he'd just discovered a secret. "Then you still are." That stuck with her. And when she saw the job posting at Stratus Aerotech, a small technician role. Nothing prestigious. Something inside her said try. Not to reclaim what was lost. Not to be seen. But maybe, to protect. To protect what she once stood for. To protect kids like Cody, who deserved to grow up in a world where people build things that work. That last. That matter. Not designs stolen for profit and ego. That's why Emma showed up at that conference hall in jeans and a white shirt. Not to impress. Not to prove anything. But because the engine on stage wasn't just any machine. It was hers. And if she didn't fix it, no one would. Coming up next. The moment Emma silences the room, and makes them listen without saying a word. Emma's hands moved across the RS-900's engine housing with quiet focus. Her fingers tracing the seams of the pressure lines. The sensors. The injection systems. On the surface, it looked familiar, too familiar. Then she found it. A calibration port, offset by exactly 3.2 centimeters. She froze. That error wasn't random. It wasn't even new. It was hers. More precisely, it was from her design. The propulsion system she created for NASA's Orion Deep Space Initiative 5 years ago. But something was off. The compression ratio was wrong. The resonance frequency settings had been altered. And whoever copied it had no idea what they were doing. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Because this wasn't just a flawed version of her engine, it was dangerous. At cruising altitude, that imbalance would cause harmonic vibration inside the combustion chamber, potentially leading to total structural failure. In plain English, a catastrophic in-flight explosion. She stepped back, her mind spinning. They hadn't just stolen her design. They'd butchered it, and now they were parading it as cutting-edge innovation, built on a lie that could cost lives. And suddenly, it wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't about getting even with Richard Langston. It wasn't about reclaiming her reputation. It was about doing what she'd always done, protecting people, building systems that worked, that were safe, that mattered. The irony was brutal. They brought her here to humiliate her. But in doing so, they handed her proof that someone had weaponized her work. Her hands trembled again, not from fear this time, but from memory, of late nights in the NASA lab, of sketches on whiteboards, of her fiancé's voice, once reassuring, now forever poisoned. "They'll never believe you did this alone." He was wrong. They wouldn't believe her, not yet, but they would see. She wasn't going to shout. She wasn't going to explain. She was going to show them. Piece by piece, screw by screw, fixing what they never even understood was broken. Because someone had to. Because if this engine ever left the ground the way it was now, it wouldn't just destroy her legacy. It would destroy lives. And that was something Emma Carter could not and would not allow. Up next, with only minutes left, Emma picks up her tools, and does what Ivy League engineers couldn't in 3 days. Not for recognition, not for revenge, but for the truth. The clock on the projector screen ticked down. 10 minutes left. Emma stood silently in front of the 900 rupees. Tools laid out neatly beside her. The laughter had started to die. Something about her expression, sharp, focused, utterly unbothered, had shifted the room's energy. Richard Langston leaned over to one of his engineers, whispering something snide, but his voice no longer carried the same confidence. Emma didn't hear any of it. She was inside the engine now, physically and mentally, running calculations in her head, recalling pressure ratios, harmonics, flow dynamics. Her damaged right hand ached, but she kept working. Every move she made was surgical, precise, decisive. She removed the injector housing, exposing a misaligned chamber that had gone unnoticed by Stratus Aerotech's elite team for days. Within seconds, she diagnosed the root cause, a flawed compression intake modeled incorrectly from her original Orion schematics. She didn't say a word. She just corrected it. Next came the pressure modulator, off by fractions of a millimeter. Enough to destroy the entire system at 40.000 feet. She recalibrated it manually, entering figures into the onboard diagnostics console with machine-like clarity. The room had gone completely quiet. Phones that were once held up to record her humiliation were now forgotten in lapse. No one moved. Even Sarah Lynn, one of the lead engineers who had mocked Emma earlier, was now standing with her arms crossed. Jaw tight, eyes narrowed not with arrogance, but with disbelief. And then came the moment. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a small black NASA pin, worn, faded, its edges dulled by years of handling. She didn't flash it for drama. She set it down beside her tools, like a compass pointing back to the truth. Then she initiated the diagnostic boot sequence. The engine roared to life. And it didn't just work, it purred. Every system check lit green. Vibrations stabilized. Fuel pressure held perfect. Temperature curves fell into nominal range like they were made to be there, because they were. Emma took one step back, wiped her hand on a cloth, and quietly said, "It's done." A beat passed. Then two. And finally, someone in the crowd whispered, "What just happened?" Richard's face had gone pale. His arms crossed defensively, like he was trying to shield himself from the truth that had just smacked him in the chest. Because he knew, everyone knew, this wasn't luck, this wasn't a fluke, this was mastery. Not a woman who watched YouTube tutorials. Not a mechanic who got lucky. This was someone who had designed engines for outer space, and had just fixed theirs in under 30 minutes. Up next, the moment her identity is revealed, and 200 people realize they were in the presence of a legend. For a full 10 seconds, the only sound in the auditorium was the flawless hum of the 900 rupees engine. Then a voice from the back, hesitant but certain, broke the silence. "That can't be. That calibration. That spec data, it's proprietary." Everyone turned. Emma didn't flinch. She reached for the console and, with a few keystrokes, pulled up a hidden line of code embedded deep in the engine's firmware, a tag written in plain text. M. Carter. NASA .2019. A murmur rolled through the crowd like a ripple through water. Sarah Lynn, one of the harshest critics moments ago, took a step forward. Her expression drained of color. No one outside NASA would know those specs. That engine, it's based on the Orion propulsion system. Emma turned to face them. "I know," she said quietly, "because I designed it." Gasps, audible, sharp. Richard Langston, who had been standing stiffly by the edge of the stage, looked like he'd seen a ghost. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Dr. Emma Carter is..." She vanished. Her clearance was revoked. Her name, erased. Emma finished for him, because that's what happens when someone with the wrong credentials gets too close to something valuable. She rolled up the sleeve on her right arm. A hush fell again. The scars were brutal, a network of tissue damage that snaked from wrist to elbow, a permanent reminder of the explosion that nearly killed her and ended her career. Emma's voice didn't waver. 5 years ago, I warned NASA about a fatal resonance vulnerability in this exact configuration. No one listened, and when I tried to stop the man who stole my work, she held up her hand. This is what it cost me. The room was frozen. This wasn't a technician anymore. This was Dr. Emma Carter, once hailed as the youngest propulsion systems lead in the history of the Johnson Deep Space Program, now standing before them as the woman they'd laughed at. Today, she said, you invited me here to humiliate me, and in doing so, you handed me proof that this company is preparing to deploy a corrupted version of my design, one that could kill people. No one spoke, not even Richard, because there was nothing left to say. The woman they had dismissed, mocked, and recorded for social media clout, had just saved them from launching a death trap. And more than that, she'd done it with restraint, with dignity, and with precision none of them could match. Up next. The moment Emma makes her choice, walk away with power, or use it to change everything. The silence in the room was no longer awkward. It was reverent. No one dared to move. And Emma, she just stood there. Not triumphant, not angry, just calm, steady, certain. Richard Langston finally found his voice, but it was cracked. Barely above a whisper. Dr. Carter, I don't know what to say. Emma looked him in the eyes. Then maybe it's better if you listen. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, not full of lawsuits or threats, but blueprints, original ones, her actual Orion schematics, unaltered, clean, efficient. She placed them on the console. That's how it was meant to function. The version you built? It was never designed to fly. Richard stepped forward, eyes scanning the pages like a drowning man clutching at air. You could sue us, he said. We deserve it, but if you're willing, we'd give you a blank check. Any position, full control, whatever you want. Emma gave the slightest smile, the kind that doesn't reach the lips but speaks volumes. I don't want your money. She turned to face the crowd. I didn't come here to reclaim my title, or make a spectacle. I came because I saw something broken, and I knew people could get hurt. She picked up the small NASA pin from the table and slipped it back into her pocket. My consulting fee for fixing the 900 rupees is $1. She said, the price of a cup of coffee. Murmurs swept through the crowd, not disbelief this time, but awe. Why? Someone near the front asked. Emma looked toward a young intern standing near the back of the room, wide-eyed, holding a notebook, and barely 20, because I'd rather invest in people who haven't been seen yet. The next Emma, the kid in a garage who dreams about engines. The girl who's told she's not the right fit. That's who I work for now. One of the lead engineers, Sarah Lynn, stepped forward, her voice shaking. We're sorry, I was wrong about you. Emma nodded. You weren't wrong about me. You just didn't bother to look. And with that, she gathered her tools, zipped up her worn canvas bag, and turned toward the exit. No applause, no drama, just respect. People moved aside instinctively, like they were witnessing something sacred. At the door, someone called after her. Where will you go now? Emma paused, turned back, and said simply, I've got a library shift tomorrow. And a girl named Alicia who thinks physics is magic. She's not wrong. Then she walked into the California sun, not to hide, not to prove anything, but to live fully, finally, as herself. Because true power isn't about taking back what was stolen. It's about choosing who you lift as you rise. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stand back up without asking for permission. Emma did not come back to reclaim a title. She did not show up to crush those who mocked her. She came to do what was right, because doing what is right, even when no one is watching, is where real strength lives. This story is not just about an engineer. It is about every person who has ever been told they are not enough. Not qualified enough, not the right gender, not from the right background. It is about having your name erased, and still choosing to leave your mark anyway. Emma showed us that dignity does not shout. It does not need a podium or applause. Dignity fixes what is broken, speaks through action, and walks away when it could have stayed for revenge. So the next time someone doubts you, or you doubt yourself, remember this. Credentials can be stolen, reputation can be twisted, but what no one can take from you is what you know, who you are, and how you carry yourself when it matters most. If this story meant something to you, I would love for you to be part of this space. Please like the video if Emma's story moved you. Leave a comment below if you have ever been underestimated and found your own way to rise above it. And if you have not already, consider subscribing. There are more stories coming, stories of resilience, quiet courage, and people who refuse to stay small just because the world tells them to. Because maybe, just maybe, the next Emma is already out there. And this time, we will be the ones who believe in her.